Hi everybody, you're listening to the Khandaan podcast by the You Podcast team, a bi-weekly podcast revisiting the movies of Aamir Khan, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan.
Every show we pick a random year from 3 decades of collectively 300 films the Khans have done and let our listeners vote which movie we should talk about. So it's entirely up to you.
Pick a team, make a vote, take us down nostalgia lane, punish us, or make us reassess a movie we dismissed.
We love the Khans, most of us, sometimes. And we would love for you all to be part of our Khandaan, because when it comes to the Khans in Bollywood, nothing else really matters.
How are you doing, Beth?
I'm terrible and I'm fine. You know.
Yeah. Sadly, we do know. Everyone knows.
I know.
Is it my imagination, or are you not on Twitter as much these days?
Me? I don't know. I work from home probably did cause a shift in my Twitter usage. I would have thought it drove it up, but I don't know. But you know, you open, you scroll, and you want to shoot yourself. And then, no. Sorry, I shouldn't say that for many reasons. You can edit that out if you want. You want to shoot a lot of other people, but it just doesn't. And I'm looking for you guys. I have a list of my favorite Bollywood friends, but everybody's retweeting news, and I am too, and I don't blame any of us. I'm like, oh. So then I just close it again. And this is not a request that people be frivolous. This is not a critique of anyone commenting and sharing news. And for me, retweeting stuff is what I can do to amplify, but also just, yes, I feel this, or it's someone else has expressed it, and I would like to agree that I, show that I agree or whatever. And but it, the frivolous spaces are shrinking, but that is the price we pay for being in 2020. So I don't think that's wrong. I just think it's taking getting used to.
I think it's important to strike the balance between, because you want to be aware of what's happening, but at the same time you should be able to maintain your sanity. So I go from retweeting and liking a lot of posts to just checking out completely and no, I need to watch Friends for 2 hours to get back to normal. Although, Friends may be a bad choice at this point as well.
I was going to say watching the whitest show ever at these times is an interesting choice.
I've definitely been taking more breaks. Just generally, I was on a break 2 weeks ago, and since then I've just not gotten back into the flow as much. I'm enjoying it. Really, I'm kind of enjoying surfing on top of the waves of Twitter, but not deep diving into anything. And I'm kind of fine at the moment with this.
Oh, by the way, talking about DMs, that just reminds me, somebody pointed out today, that apparently on Instagram, for my account, if you're following me on Amrita by the Book, because a couple of people from the podcast have tried to text me on, DM me on that account. And I just want to say, I didn't know that you have to go and, individually accept DM requests. I thought it just showed up if we were, friends or something. But no, so today somebody asked me to check my DMs, and I went in, and all my friends have been texting me on it, and I didn't know. And I must have been such a rude binge. It must have been how come we are following you and texting you on all your content, and I don't even get a like or a scene. It's because I didn't know, and I'm an idiot. Okay, I'm sorry. So I've been responding to everybody now. I'm very sorry, and I'll pay closer attention to my DMs from now on.
I actually want to give a shout out to our YouTube channel that Sujoy has been nice enough to start up and get going. And I did say we will give a shout out to everybody that subscribes. So do subscribe it. Like, the thing is, if it grows, we can do more stuff on it. But at the moment, we're just putting the audio version of our podcast. But I do have constant ideas. I know Sujoy has some ideas and Amrita too. So we might do things if it kind of grows. But I want to give out a shout out to Danielle, to Sheeni, my sister. Hey, Sheeni. Jackie, Abdullah, Apurva, Nimrat, Ruhibal, and then it's a Turkish name that I cannot pronounce. Gurul Tululu, I think. That's so. Yeah, thanks guys for subscribing, and if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be great. It'll kind of grow, and it'll make Sujoy happy because he's the one, making the videos and stuff like that. Yeah, so it's cool.
Oh. I just subscribed and I smashed the bell icon.
Oh, oh yeah, the bell icon. Yeah, that's what YouTubers need to do too. Yeah, do the bell icon thing. Yeah.
We are so 2020 now.
Look, Jenna Marbles has retired. You can take her place.
I was just gonna say, like, the originals are retiring. We're kind of coming into the space now. Okay, let's get going. Beth, top friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you, top friends. It's lovely to be here, bro.
I was, funnily enough, re-listening to the Race 3 episode. And, that's been like almost 2 years ago. And we have aged so much. Like, you can hear it in our voice. Like, in those 2 years, like, what hellscape we've gone through. Like, it's insane. It's still good fun, though.
Race 3 was the highlight.
Yeah, it's all gone downhill since then.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, God. Yeah. I
Doesn't mean Remo should not make any more movies.
Or maybe he should, bring us back, like at least have some content we can make.
No, every time Remo makes the movie, the world goes into further descent.
Yeah. Okay, let's get going. I think one first thing I also want to do is give a shout out to the people that subscribe to YouTube. Then I wanted to add these two voicemails we got. One from Dunk Draft. I think that's the IT.
Dunk Daft.
Dunk Daft, about Lagan, and also from the Bollywood fan. Both good friends of ours on Twitter, and I needed to add these last episode, but then I screwed up editing, so here they are.
I was in engineering hostel when the first look of this was released. Had no access to anything, TV, internet, nothing. Only heard how it was. Some two actors lying in front of setting sun. Then finally I got to see it somehow, and I was awestruck. How only Silhouette against setting sun, he wrapping chunri over her, and prelude of Ganan Ganan. Oof, the love story started then and there and went through years, in which I saw it first in front of a row of packed theatre. The atmosphere was outrageous would be perfect word for that. People were crying, shouting, and much more in a multiplex. I have visited its shooting places, watched a crap movie in a theatre because the theatre was the one where Lagan was premiered in Bhuj of Gujarat. And now I am here sitting in front of my TV watching it with my actually equally excited 6-year-old daughter who loves cricket unlike me and have started to love the movie also, and she does not let me turn it off till the movie gets over. That's Lagan, the part of life of me.
Hello to everyone on the Khandaan podcast, and thank you for soliciting my input. Given that Lagan is one of my absolute favorite films of all time, I run the risk of going all Ashutosh Gowarikar on you, but I'll try not to, okay? So let's get right to it. What stuck with me the most over the years, from the viewpoint of a film fan, I think Lagan was a good example, probably one of the best examples at the time, of a film having both the ability to explore important social themes and be wildly successful commercially while appeasing film viewers of different tastes. The notions of art house v. commercial cinema are pretty much thrown out the door very early on in the film. This was one for the masses, but it was also far from the typical core Bollywood commercial film of its time. So I do think it set an important benchmark thematically and even technically when you think about things like production values and authenticity. In the post-Lagan era, I think filmmakers really started believing in the commercial viability of films that entertain and raise awareness, or films that entertain and promote introspection. See, sometimes people just need to see someone else take a big risk and succeed before they'll try something similar, and I think that's what Lagan did. That's its legacy in setting the stage for a new wave of Hindi films in a new century. So, moving on to the next question, what were my biggest takeaways? Gee, that's a loaded question. There are quite a few. I'll stick to 2 or 3 maybe. First, I haven't come across a film character out there that sets a better example of managing the self and others. Everything from Bhuvan's body language and posture to his decision-making, his decisiveness, his persistence, the sheer will to give something his best shot despite knowing the high likelihood of failure, and being reminded of that high likelihood of failure on many different occasions. That's the spirit of this lead character. He's daring to dream big, and he's leaving no stone unturned. There's also the fine line he's constantly walking between being perceived as naive or heroic, and we see these perceptions and their effects play out in the film. But there he is, just chugging along, going chale chalo through it all. So first and foremost, the lead character being one worth emulating. Second is the distinction between justice and fairness, or the principles of justice and fairness, which the film speaks to quite a bit. An extension to this theme eventually leads to discussions around equality in general and equality of access to basic sustenance in particular. And I'm thinking about the scene in which Mai is looking to the sky, shielding her eyes from the sunlight in a barren desert, trying to find a cloud, even one. That scene from the beginning really sticks with you. So does the part where, after celebrating the presumed arrival of rain clouds, when they're singing and dancing to Ganan Ganan, the clouds suddenly drift away, and here comes the sun again as the villagers go off running, chasing the clouds. It's truly heartbreaking, and you feel the desperation in those moments. There's also this explicit acknowledgement of life not always being fair in that scene with Elizabeth arguing with her brother. When he just responds, so is life. Well, so is life, isn't it? What's fair versus unfair? Who sets the standards? The film does make one think about that. I'll add a third. I think the part that sticks with me in most Ashutosh Gorakhpur films, which is why I respect his work so much, is this constant focus on unity and unification. It's almost like he's made up his mind to, or made it his mission to say, look, I know it's very tempting to be sensationalist and to sell divisiveness, and chances are those will sell more. But I'd rather focus on the commonalities than on the differences. No one person is greater than the group. The group can make progress collectively. So think about the composition of the cricket team. As tokenized and as cheesy as some of it could have appeared, I think it's pulled off very convincingly. You can't help but root for the underdogs and the forces driving them. That scene in which Kachra is brought into the team is just incredible in how it's written and portrayed. And Bhuvan going with Lakha a second time, forgiving him for something that was deeply personal because the greater good, once again, took priority. So those are some of the things that have stuck with me. There's so much to love about this film. The music, the cast, the dialogue, the direction. We could go on and on, just so well put together. Which leads me to, well, what does Lagan mean to me? Aside from it being an excellent entertainer and what I consider a cinematic masterpiece, it's also the film that's inspired me more than any other to try to be the best version of myself I can be. We respond to art within the confines of our own values, experiences, biases, and so forth. And in retrospect, I love that this film in particular released when it did, when I was still a teen, very much in my formative years, as they say. I don't think I've seen it subsequently without having come away with something new each time. I absolutely love it from start to finish. Just love it. So that's it from me. To end, thank you again to the Khandaan podcast. You all keep on rocking. I wish you and all your listeners all the very best as we navigate through some truly unprecedented times. Stay happy, stay well, and stay safe. Bye now.
Beth, we spoke a little bit about Lagan on Twitter, but I was just kind of like, did you want to talk about it a bit more? Did you have any thoughts about it?
My experience is that it's a starter movie for some people who are new to Hindi cinema, and it's a beast of a starter movie, and if there's anyone... I'm sure this would not apply to anyone listening to this podcast, but listeners who have friends who might want to start watching Hindi cinema, this is too much to give anybody as their first Hindi movie, especially if they don't know cricket. Don't do it. Be a friend.
Yeah.
Pick something else.
It's like people that start with Sholay or Mughal-e-Azam too, It's not the movie you want to start like your Bollywood journey with, but those are the three that, Pakiza, that kind of thing. It's not there.
Mother India.
Yeah, Mother India.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I remember so the early 2000s is when American curriculum was sort of diversifying, and we had this one professor in my school who had a Bollywood course, and I looked at what he was planning to show people, and it was legit like Mother India was the first movie on his list, and then it was like Avara and stuff, and I was like, I get why you are choosing these things, but oh my god, those poor kids who are like so excited to sign up for this class, they're gonna show up and be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I think for a starter course, like something light and fluffy would do the trick. I think like Kuch Kuch Hota Hai or Kaho Na Pyare, something to just give them a taste to just tip their toe into Bollywood, and then maybe introduce them to more larger canvas movies.
I think this was also because it was in like 2003, so they were looking at more like classical Hindi cinema. But the title was a misnomer because they were like Bollywood, and you have this idea of what that is going to be like, and instead it's like classic Hindi cinema, which is a completely different thing. But I think like these are distinctions that have evolved and become more concrete over the years since then. So I don't absolutely blame the professor who came up with that course, but I do remember even then like just laughing my head off. These poor 18-year-olds,
I think people who sign up for a cinema studies course, that's a slightly different... They've self-selected in a way that maybe your friend who asks you a casual question has not.
Probably.
But yeah, I wouldn't inflict Mother India on someone brand new. I mean, it took me like 10 years to watch Mother India or something. Long time, because it's a lot.
मैं हवलदार राम सिंह सीआईडी बोल रहा हूँ। ये खून हुआ है। मुझे ऐसा लगता है एसपी साहब कि ये किसी एक आदमी का काम नहीं है। इसमें कम से कम 2 आदमी दरकार है। एक वो जिसने चाकू चलाया और दूसरा वो जिसने चाकू चलवाया। आंखों में इशारा हो गया, बैठे बैठे जीने का सहारा हो गया, आंखों में.
This is kind of a good segue to something that I watched actually this week. I watched...
Yes.
Remember like a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about me adding these old-ass movies to my watch list, and Amrita said, Asim, you're never going to watch these things. So, despite Amrita, I watched an old-ass movie. And the other reason was also, it reminded me of, that... what's that called? The film companion class Anupama Chopra does with these filmmakers, and it's like in front of students. And it was with Rohit Shetty. And Rohit Shetty was talking about, all of these new movies are actually like old movies you should watch, like this old movie and that old movie, and I don't even remember the names. And I was like, I have time. I need to watch a few more movies that at least I feel better than Rohit Shetty, like it can be that Rohit Shetty knows more about these things than I do, right? Like, so I kind of dipped my toes in it, and I am coming back with a wet toe because I watched CID. This was the first one I went to. It's a movie from 1956. Have you guys watched CID?
Yes.
Who's watched CID?
I have.
You have? You have?
I have. Yeah. I wanted to watch it with you, but I couldn't. I feel like I couldn't find it with subtitles or something.
Yeah, it was on Prime. It was on Prime and it was with subtitles, but like terrible print. Like it's so bad. Like I don't know what Prime allows on their interface, but it's like, whatever you have in wholesale, just bring it, we'll sell it on, It's that kind of thing. It's like a junk market for movies. Because, we were talking about, like, you were forwarding a Bengali movie to me, Amrita, this week, and we ended up finding like a good, decent print on YouTube. Remastered with subtitles. It had 64 views, but it was a decent print. CID is like the most terrible print ever. But what are you guys like, Amrita? What are your thoughts on CID? Do you have any memories of it? Fond memories?
I mostly remember that Wahida song. Like that's my strongest memory of it. But I saw it like a very long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't think I remember the story as such.
So Joy, do you remember anything?
I only remember O.P. Nayyar's songs. Like, it's got some of the, like, the most... It's one of the best musicals that has come out of Indian cinema, It's "Ae Dil Hai Mushkil," "Aankhon Hi Aankhon Mein Ishara Ho Gaya," and all of that. "Leke Pehla Pehla Pyar" and all. Yeah. It's one of the best soundtracks ever, but I can't exactly remember what the movie was actually about.
It was Wahida's first film, right? First Hindi film?
Yeah, like the first or second. Like she done like a few roles and then she got this like bigger role into it. So it's like really her first one. And she's not even like the main hero, and she's like the vamp in this one. So it's interesting because I've not watched many Devanand movies. I've not watched Wahida Rahman movies, so it was kind of interesting to go back to it. Plus, the other thing is also like these movies get so lauded by critics. Like this is like classic cinema, and you should, if you've not watched this. I feel that like I'm like a commercial massy kind of guy, and I feel like shit, man. I don't know shit if I have not watched like CID and like old Wahida Rahman movies, and so I was like, I'll watch it, and I'll try to watch it without any like khunnas, without any anger in my eyes, like just openly watch them. But it is like a totally different era, like, and it's funny also to me because Amrita, you were saying, like this is kind of the base of what movies became later on. So this is very clearly like a film noir kind of Maltese Falcon kind of movie, right? Where something but the scale and the budget is so small, and like it's such a neat and clean time. Like it's insane to me. Like you go to this, they're in the streets of I think Bombay, and like there's nobody there. I think that what's that beach? Is it Marine Drive, or I don't know what it is because I've never been there. But it's like that seaside, is it Juhu Beach or whatever? And they're just walking and there's nobody there. And I was like, how? Like what was this like? What was Bombay like in '56? Like I understand suddenly people that have like nostalgia for that time because everybody was kind of dressed nicely in uncomfortable clothes, and you had space, everything was clean, that kind of thing. And it was just like funny to see all of that. Like I have no sense of nostalgia. I don't want to go back. I think everybody looks super weird, and I think also, how did Devanand become a star? Like how did that happen? Like his hair is so weird, like on top is up high and on the side it's down low. Like how did he become such a big star? I don't understand. So also like the songs are the big thing, right? Like in this movie, and like so many times critics will say, oh yeah, where did this song suddenly come from? And all of these movies have songs that come out of nowhere without any context, without any meaning, and they're just suddenly placed there. And like, पहली फिल्मों पे क्यों नहीं like criticize होता? Like, these you love, but when हमारी Farah Khan does it, it's like, oh, how does this make sense? It makes the same sense. It's like, hey, one thing. And second thing, because they're not like, because I think this movie was like, what, 8 years after partition or something like that, so it's like baby movies, right? Like, it's super new, and like, so they want to do things, but they can't, like, the social mores of that time won't allow it, so they basically just dance with their necks. So it's just like 2 centimeter there, 2 centimeter there, and they're constantly looking at you, like, it's disconcerting, like they're like looking in the camera the whole time, like वो ना जादूगर में जादूगर, you know, that kind of thing, like जादू नगरी से आया कोई जादूगर, you know, and she's just looking in my eyes, that dancer, and I'm like, is she hypnotizing me? Am I the jadugar? Are you doing jadoo on me? What's going on? So yeah, that was all very interesting.
And you know, it reminds me of like Dancing with the Next. There was this kind of a parody song with Paresh Rawal and Sushmita Mukherjee in the Golmaal movie. It kind of throws back to that era of how film choreography was done, you know.
Yeah.
But the next movie you watch should be Chalti Ka Naam Gaadi. Like, it's on Prime, if I'm not mistaken, but you should watch it.
I shall watch it and I shall report back to you from my masala eyes on what I found on this movie.
I think you'll like that one.
But it is funny, like how, like if you watch like old Hollywood movies and this, there wasn't that much difference between filmmaking at that time, right? I think until the 60s, it seemed like all like cinematic genres were, you know, like regions were quite similar. And then 70s happened and something like really, really vastly changed, if I'm not wrong. Like, I'm not a history major like, you know, like Rohit Shetty. But yeah.
Well, also, like, if you're watching Dev Anand movies, like, you know, he was probably the most, like, not anglicized, but the most, like, Hollywood-esque of the big three at the time. So his movies definitely, like, sort of lean that way, I think.
Can we talk about how Dev Anand gets called the Gregory Peck of India? And I will never understand this. And that's not a critique of Dev Anand. I like him, although I find his stylizedness really gets in the way of. He gets in his own way sometimes, although more in the color films, I think, than the black and
in
white
CID
ones.
there was none of that mannerisms. Like, I was like, in the CID it has great. None of that. And my brain is obviously from the 90s, so when I think of Dev Anand, I think of his copy, lookalike Dev Anand instead of the actual Dev Anand. Yeah. But yeah, he didn't have any of that shaking. But he's super weird guy, man. Like, he's like always like seducing women at the most wrong times, and like it's like. Yeah, it's really weird. Like, I do not get nostalgia. It's a weird time. Like, I don't want to go back to the past. But anyway, sorry, Beth, I was Gregory Peck, right?
Oh yeah. I've read that comparison many times and never understood it, and I don't know if
I think it's literally the hair.
Okay.
Because it can't be their personalities. Because like. Peck is just this one solid block of comforting American masculinity, and Dev Anand is like 100% not. So it can't be anything else. Like, I think it's literally their hair.
Yeah.
So Amrita, you showed me Asli Nakli, right, the other day, and that was a great movie, and we had a very interesting conversation about the various merits of the big three heroes from that day.
Wait, who's the big three? Sorry, who's the big three? Dilip Kumar, Raj Kapoor,
and Dev Anand. And I mean, when you kind of think about them that way, I have never particularly gotten the appeal of those other two. So for me, it would be that's no contest. It's Dev Anand, I think.
What about that Kumar Gaurav's dad? Wasn't he big then too? Like, I don't know his name.
That's slightly, he's about the same time, but like, I think like the 60s were when he became like a really big star, whereas the other three started in the 50s.
Yeah.
And Johnny Walker is like the proto comedy uncle. Like I didn't put those things together. Like he's like the first Johnny Lever. Like Johnny Walker is the Johnny Lever of Purana Zamana. Like he gets a song and all that. It's crazy.
Your chronology is so funny to me. You'd think that you were the person new to Hindi films, and it's not true. Like the 50s are the beginning of Hindi cinema. They are not.
Yeah, it's for me. It's all a journey. It's very interesting to watch these things, but it does feel like homework or having a kale smoothie. So I don't like necessarily enjoy it. Somebody was telling us, we'd listen to the podcast. It was about Dilip Kumar. This is not going to be that podcast. Like, this is not that.
Yeah, Asim's verdict is CID is like having a kale smoothie.
Exactly. It is. Yeah.
Can I tell you what I watched in my attempt to find an old movie to join in on?
Yes, please.
So I watched. I went looking for some Raj Khosla movies to kind of join you, and I have recently unsubscribed from Prime, so I was like, meh. But I didn't find anything with subtitles, and then that website Ainthuzan, or however you pronounce it, that I subscribe to, which for people outside India is a great place to legally stream all sorts of Indian movies. They recommended to me Milan from 1967 with Sunil Dutt and Nutan, and I really enjoyed it. Have any of you seen that? Yeah, have you seen it?
Yes.
It's
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, not you, Asim. It's a very, very classic template reincarnation film, and some people are saying it's one of the early ones from 1967. It had a song in it that I recognized for sure, but it's a pretty standard reincarnation movie, but it was fun to watch.
Those songs are famous, like every single song in that's like one of the best albums, I think, of that era.
And there's a beautiful picturization of one about, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name, but Sunil Dutt is singing to Nutan about, I will give you my sleep so that you can sleep and I'll stay awake. And it's just filmed so beautifully. It's so, it's just so loving and wonderful. Yeah, you could watch it for the songs and not be sad.
Because, I was saying that I've been like surfing on the waves of Twitter. So I saw your tweet about who likes Sanjay Dutt more than Sunil Dutt. But there were like already 70 tweets regarding, and all like very respected people that reply to you, Beth. And Amrita then say, nobody would say that. And I am here to say, I like Sanjay Dutt more than Sunil Dutt. I just want to say that.
I almost brought you into this because I wanted to say, listen, I could name you at least one person who's never even seen Sunil Dutt as a hero. But, to me, right, like there is love for some of these 80s and 90s action-ish heroes that I don't understand at all. So to me, I was like, well, for all I know, somebody was putting Sanjay Dutt in movies and buying tickets to his movies. Yeah. Somebody finds him interesting enough to make a biopic about. So, and I have never, ever, in all of my old movie fan time, right, and I talk about old Hindi movies a lot with a lot of people, I've never heard anyone gush about Sunil Dutt. Ever. Yeah. So I just thought, like, okay, maybe it's weird to like want the father more than the son, but not the case, apparently. Good to know.
No, but you had like all like the film professors and journalists. I was like, I don't want to like come and shit in this dinner party here, Like I don't want to come like, I cooked a turd for you guys. Like I don't want to be that guy. But I was like also thinking about Nutan, because I've seen a lot of Nutan love lately on Twitter. I don't know what you guys are talking about, because for me, like, the first time I saw her was in Meri Jang, and remember when she has that sadma that her husband is dead and her face freezes, and that scared the bejesus out of me as a kid, and like that face of Nutan has haunted me in my nightmares. So Mary Jung, and this is how I grew up, Mary Jung and Khalnayak, and these are the movies, Atish, that's what I love. I don't know what, Dhoti Mein Sunil Dutt is interesting for people, but I guess he is for a lot of...
Oh, but you should watch his Daku dramas. I bet you'd be totally into it.
Oh, yeah. They're good.
I'll DM me some names. I'll add them if they're on Prime or something like that. That's how far I can go in looking for these old movies.
If it appeals to you, Milan is the movie which has Sawan Ka Mahina.
Yeah, that's Milan.
Yeah.
Okay. I just know the Mr. India version. I just know the Mr. India version. Is that football na mile to bacche ho jayenge bore, na? That's the one?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. See, that's how my brain works. What else, Beth? What else have you been watching? Or doing? Or listening to?
And TV-wise, I have finally started watching Moonlighting from the mid-'80s with Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepherd, which I was not allowed to watch when it aired originally. And I love it. And it was promoted recently on the Thirst Aid podcast, in which one of the hosts is talking about her love for that film or for that show, and talks about imprinting hard on David Addison, which is a very relatable feeling, I think.
Is that Bruce Willis's character?
And it's not... Yeah. And it's not... I couldn't find it streaming anywhere legit, but you can find it. And it's aged very well, I would say.
I've never watched that show. I've heard of it, but this was even before. So I've heard it in the context of when people talk about Die Hard and how Bruce Willis got the role from Moonlighting. But this is an era of television that completely passed me by. Like, it's Cheers and that kind of era, and Cagney and Lacey, I guess. And I think maybe it was before my time, or we weren't getting those shows at home. So I've not watched any of this, and I actually on Hulu I've been watching a bit of Cheers, but those things are aged. So what is Moonlighting? Is it like are they cops? Are they like journalists? What is
private detectives?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, private detectives. And Cybill Shepherd's character was a famous model, which is the excuse, I think, for her to kind of swan around in fur coats and stuff in Los Angeles. Doesn't make sense, but it's they're PIs and get into things that are far above their talents, one would think. But mostly on that podcast,
No, I was just gonna ask, is it like an episodic story, like every episode wraps with a mystery kind of thing? All right, okay.
Yeah. And it's I've heard people call it the sort of His Girl Friday for the 1980s, and I can see what they're talking about, because it's got very fast dialogue and is very quippy.
And they got that
also,
will they, won't they kind of thing.
Yes, that's what it's most famous for, I think, is the building of the romantic and sexual tension among the two leads.
Right.
And also, like, if you're watching Cheers, I would actually recommend skipping Cheers, which has aged really badly, and watch Frasier instead.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm the opposite. I feel like Cheers has aged fine and Frasier feels dated. Interesting.
I like Frasier a lot more than Cheers, actually. Like, I was trying to watch a couple of episodes of Cheers, and I was just like, I really can't get into this anymore. But, but yeah.
Frasier, I watched when it was on. Frasier I watched it when it was on. Cheers was kind of before my time, so I didn't even know that Frasier was a spin-off of Cheers. So, and honestly, I'm saying I'm rewatching Cheers. I've really not gotten far. Like Frasier has not even appeared in Cheers. So that's how far I am. Like, I'm really kind of like in season 1. So it's age. Those things are hard to revisit, especially if you don't have a connection with them. But a lot of people talk about like it has like the perfect comedy TV writing. Cheers is the one that gets lauded a lot, so I just want to kind of see what it was about. But it's fun. But Moonlighting I have not checked out at all, so but it's not streaming anywhere easily to find, right? It's like YouTube you're watching
not that I'm aware of. No.
Right.
A Daily Motion. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a shame. I think these old shows, like, I don't know what's holding people back to just, like, dump them somewhere that people can watch them, you know?
Yeah.
Sujoy, man, what have you been doing?
Is that a general question? What have I been doing with my life?
You can answer however you want. Which is the most feeling scan? What do you want to talk about? What do you want to tell us, Sujoy?
I mean, we have been talking a lot about nostalgic movies with Nutan and Sunil Dutt and Devanand, which is surprising to me that Asim went and watched a black and white Devanand movie. And all of those elements kind of come together in the Sushmita Sen show on Hotstar called Aarya.
मुझ पे भरोसा करती हो कि नहीं आर्या? तुम तैयार हो सब कुछ छोड़ के मेरे साथ जाने के लिए?
He's going to be late again, huh? Come on, guys.
Cheers!
Why is there a gun in the house?
Which is a crime thriller.
Segway.
I know, right? It is based on or adapted from a Dutch drama, a crime drama series called Penoja, and it's about this, a bit of a minor spoiler, but you would have guessed it, that Aarya is the titular role played by Sushmita Sen. She is a widow and she is, in a crime family, and they have certain business to make money, and then her husband dies, and then she has to repay her debt, and to do that she has to go through all sorts of things, and she has to also be the mother to her 3 kids, and also need to juggle the many complexities that come with being in a crime syndicate. And so there's the villain, there's the town smarties, the police get involved, and it's all set in Rajasthan. And it's directed by Neerja's director, Ram Advani. So remember in Neerja, there was like a throwback to Rajesh Khanna songs and how Neerja was such a fan of Rajesh Khanna. So there's like a lot of throwback to Hindi songs here in this series. Basically showing Chandrachur Singh, who plays Sushmita's husband, is a big fan of olden Hindi classical songs, and he plays a lot of vinyl, and that kind of is the emotional connect that Sushmita's character kind of misses her husband not being present in, and she's on this solitary journey to deal with everything that's thrown her way, and the emotional heft of that relationship is carried through these songs. It's kind of beautiful. I'd like to recommend this show to everybody who is hungry for content. It's really well made, and it really plays to the strengths of Sushmita Sen as a performer. Like there is a certain calmness about her presence, and she plays it to that strength, and she really shines. I'm really delighted to see her on screen.
What's the tone of the show, the way it's like set up? Because I feel like a lot of like the Indian shows have become very dark, and I feel Aarya, is it like that? Is it dark, or because like I don't want, like sometimes I don't want to watch another Patal Lok, like I just need a break. But where does it veer like Aarya?
I don't think there is much to be discussed in this show that sort of comments on the politics of the environment that it exists in. It's not really dark in that way. It does have influences from Bhagavad Gita, so it talks about mortality, it talks about morality, and it talks about the distinction between when you are yourself a part of a crime syndicate, what does good and evil mean to you, and how do you distinguish between them. Those are the kind of elements that it's trying to deal with, but it's not exactly commenting on, say, stuff like police brutality or other more social elements of what Aarya, the environment in which Aarya, as the world of Aarya exists. So yeah, it's not really as hard-hitting or as dark as a Patal Lok, as you said. So it's more breezy to watch, but there are some elements that they have tried to experiment with.
And it's on Hotstar at the moment, right? Or is it on
It
Z5?
is on Hotstar, yeah. It's on Hotstar, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people from Hotstar, if you guys are listening, send us some free subscriptions, because your model is really shit. It doesn't make any sense to for UK people to subscribe to it. Does not make any damn sense. I think you, Beth, were also struggling with this, right? This week, you wanted to. Was it Z5 you were talking about?
Oh, I was looking for Sonturia, of course, these days, and it's only on Z5, which isn't even in the US, so. Can't watch it.
Yeah, and I wanted to watch Laila Majnu because we were talking about Bulbul later, and a soundtrack that I've loved and I've still listened to so many times, and it's just only on Z5. You can't even rent it on iTunes. It's not even a dodgy print of you on YouTube doesn't even exist. So it's it's Z5 or nothing, and I don't want to subscribe to another service. I think and not definitely not to Hotstar and to Z5, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But yeah. But Aarya looks interesting though. I'm kind of sad that I don't have access to it. Yeah. Is it worth? Do you think it would be worth subscribing to Hotstar for just this show or not? Is it that good?
I'm not sure at this moment. It's not that good either. I mean, if we watch a lot of crime TV shows, right? And Nordic Noir has been such a big hit and has been played all sorts of shows like The Killing or Trapped, and so it kind of falls into that format of TV series. Like Penoja, which was made in the Netherlands, is 5 seasons and a movie old. So you can see all the tropes of that format. You get the strong characters and then many other supporting characters which dark elements and their own subplots, and you also see the annoying teens and their own embarrassing stories which would probably contribute to a final climax. I don't think it's as compelling to just subscribe to Hotstar because of Aarya, but if you have access, then yes, go for it.
Cool. What else have you been watching?
The Eurovision movie with Will Ferrell.
I'm quite excited for that one. I want to watch it. It looks really hilarious.
It's the whole title is called Eurovision Fire Saga. It's just silly fun. It's the perfect movie to have a house party with friends and drink and just enjoy those stupid songs.
So not in Corona times then.
Yeah, sadly not. But yeah, it's just a fun, disposable, fun watch for an evening, I guess, when you just want to veg out in front of the TV. Yeah, but the fun fantasy element to this is it is supposedly showing that the Eurovision Song Contest is being held in Edinburgh, which means the previous year the UK won Eurovision, which hasn't happened since 1997, and nobody would vote for the UK in Eurovision anymore. Yeah.
Also, didn't
they even
Iceland
have a joke
actually
about
win
it.
this year? Didn't Iceland actually win this year, or did they not? Is that not which country won? Was it Finland or Iceland?
I think this year it got cancelled, didn't it? But everything was held online. Every country released their tracks online, and the Iceland track just went really viral. Especially everybody was kind of doing that dance on TikTok.
Yeah. I thought they won. I didn't know they. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was cancelled. I thought they actually won because I was hearing that song everywhere. It's actually a good song.
Yeah.
I think it's quite a fun song. But,
oh, so good. So good.
Yeah. Cool. So would you recommend it?
It was so... yeah, absolutely. Why not? There are worse things to watch than the Eurovision Song Contest. So
Yeah. But Will Ferrell is weird, man. He's like has so many movies, and sometimes they're so bad, like that you can't even like sit through them. Like I watched one with Kevin Hart where he goes into jail. I don't know what it's called, Locked Up or something. I watched it on the plane. I didn't pay money to watch it, but oh my god, it was like painful to sit through. I was hoping like it would be so bad that I would just fall asleep, but I don't remember if that happened. But I also don't remember the movie, so maybe I did fall asleep.
You've been in that dream since. Yeah, you still need to wake up.
I still
Wake up! Fix everything. Wake up.
Maybe I might fall. This is like all my nightmare, unfortunately. We started with
same as Asim.
Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart. Amrita,
That sounds totally reasonable to me.
it does sound like a fever dream, right? Amrita, your turn. You're up to bat. What have you been watching?
I've been on a real Denzel Washington kick. So I watched Inside Man last week, and then I watched Man on Fire. And I don't know if people out there have seen it or if they've been thinking about rewatching it, but I highly recommend both of those movies if you want to rewatch. Inside Man in particular, I hadn't seen that movie since it came out, and it started playing and Chaya Chaya came on, and I immediately felt so much better about the world in like 2 seconds flat. But it's also like a time capsule for me because it came out while I was living in New York, and New York changes every year. Like it's a completely new city every single year. And for me, it kind of captures a period of New York when I was living there. And I'm pretty sure that New York doesn't exist anymore. So it was great just to like watch that city and then to watch like very local conversations that they're having. And it's also such a funny movie, like Spike Lee has like such a subverted sense of humor, and it's really funny, and Denzel like really sells it. And I had such a good time watching that film. And then Man on Fire. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying on Spike Lee, I started watching The Five Bloods, and it's really, really good. I didn't finish it yet, so I'm probably going to talk about it when we're done. But when he's in his element and he's like making a very kinetic movie, there's nobody like him. I really like Inside Man.
And I'd forgotten, he makes these certain like tracking shots and stuff, and they're amazing, there's one particular one where Jodie Foster is sitting inside this cafe, and the camera pans from the bank all the way through the crowd to the cafe window, and it's just great, the way he uses the camera to just move from like one piece to the other and to like tell a story and like sort of incorporate every element in it. It's great. I really enjoy it. And then apart from that, another really fun, energetic movie that I saw was David Copperfield, the new version with Dev Patel. And going in, I was a little bit, like Dev Patel as David Copperfield. I mean, I'm all for diverse casting, but I wasn't really sure what was up with that. And then, he has an energy that really livens up this story, and I kind of see why Iannucci chose him as David Copperfield. It's it doesn't feel like the entire movie doesn't have that stuffy period feel that a lot of Dickensian adaptations have. Because usually when you're seeing one of these British adaptations of a Dickens novel, it's so reverential and it's so, steeped in like, it's a sense of its own importance that it becomes very stuffy and it sort of becomes a chamber piece. And this movie is not that, everybody is sort of madcap and loose, and Ben Whishaw is Uriah Heep, and he is great. He's great in everything, but it's just so much fun to see these people just have a good time with each other and sort of ricochet off each other, especially Tilda Swinton and Hugh Laurie. It was fun. I had a good time.
And when, does he then also? How do they shoot the scene where he walks through the Chinese wall and he makes the elephant disappear?
That's such a niche joke.
That took me a second.
Is Tilda Swinton playing Claudia Schiffer?
No, she's playing the Great Wall. Asim does not run out of dad jokes.
No.
I'm 24/7 dad, man. What can I do? But is the movie funny though? Because if you have Yanucci involved, you kind of expect comedy. Is it or not? Is it just a period piece?
But it's No. It does have it is funny because there's a lot of that's what I meant. It's not stuffy. He really brings out the humor in the piece, and especially when Hugh Laurie and Tilda Swinton are sort of going off each other, and this is an entire section of the film where Dev Patel is. As David Copperfield, he's just trying to get them to behave like normal human beings, and they just will not. And it's great, and they move from being really funny to really poignant. Sometimes on the turn of a dime, and it's really great.
Because for me, thing didn't really work. Death of Stalin, and people were raving about that one. And I know Yanucci has kind of shifted away from more his political thing with Veep and stuff what was the other one, that The Thick of It, and he's trying to move away. He's trying to move away and kind of do more period pieces. Death of Stalin, it felt like Gulabo Sitabo when people are now memeing jokes of Gulabo Sitabo, and I'm was that a joke? Was that supposed to be the joke? Okay, I'm happy for the memes because I didn't know where the jokes were in Gulabo Sitabo. So it was the same thing with the Death of Stalin where people post these moments where it's so hilarious. I was that was supposed to be funny. So yeah, okay. Where did you watch it? Was it streaming or did you hook yourself up with something?
It was on my super secret shady site.
Okay. Yeah, I think
I do think it is available for streaming on the BBC iPlayer or something.
Okay, I'm sure it's on rental too on Prime. Or, is it not on rental? I've seen banners on Prime or something like that.
I think it's on rental as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah. So, are you interested in that, Beth? Is that something that strikes your fancy?
Oh yeah. Any 19th century British novel adapted is going to be for me, probably. I'm sure there are exceptions, but yeah, I've definitely wanted to see this.
What about you, Sujoy? Is this David Copperfield?
I've seen David Copperfield when it was at the cinemas.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Before lockdown.
Asim is wow, betrayal.
No, I didn't even know it released. I thought this was a straight to like a lot of movies have released on streaming straight away. I didn't even know it released before lockdown, so I was completely. That's why I was taken aback by it. Did you like it?
I can't exactly remember. I think I did.
Okay.
I think I did. I especially remember Ben Whishaw being really good, but yeah, I can't exactly remember this movie, but I do remember watching it because I've got the ticket stub and all.
So the last time that I believe that Amrita and I got to see a movie together in person was in London, and we saw Lion. And there were these two women behind us who I think they were both British. I can't remember, but when Dev Patel comes on the screen, one of them was like, "He's all grown up."
Because so they remember him being the boy in Skins, right? He was just a tiny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shall we move on to our main review, which is Bulbul?
कहानी सुनोगी? डरावनी कहानी है। बुलबुल? बहुत समय पहले की बात है। चुड़ैल थी, पेड़ों पे रहती थी, उल्टे पैर थे उसके, खून की प्यासी थी.
One more show note. We're going to be going on a small break from, I think I'm traveling from the 9th to the 24th. So I might record something, we might record something together, but it's not sure. So there might be a little bit of a break, but you guys are taking things over in terms of podcasting, and you have a new limited series exclusive 3 or 4 part show, if I'm not mistaken, that's coming out. Amrita, is that what the plan is?
Yeah, that's it.
So what's it going to be about?
So Joy, Beth and I were thinking about doing like a short series about Uttam Suchitra movies. And because Sujoy grew up watching them and Beth and I fell in love with them a few years ago. So we thought we'd just talk about them. And we're not sure exactly what the format's going to be, but it's going to come out during this time over the next month.
Great. And we're probably also going to be posting it on the You Podcast Bollywood edition feed. So, I mean, I'm shameless. I'll be plugging it and promoting it and listening to it. So we'll add it to that feed and then we'll let you know. So better subscribe already so you don't miss out on the first few episodes. So that's going to be around like July-ish, like mid-July-ish, right?
Yeah. And I just want to say, it's for everybody. It's not just for people who know Bengali or anything, because Beth and I don't speak Bengali. So it's not going to be it's not going to be for just Bengalis. And I'm sure like all the Bengalis that do listen to it are going to come and yell at us. But we are open for brickbats and bouquets, and it's just going to be like a version of this show, but it's going to be very specifically be about Uttam Suchitra movies.
Yeah. Plus, I won't be there to make silly jokes, so people can actually have a cohesive narrative about something like interesting. So that'll be good. No David Copperfield jokes and Claudia Schiffer jokes on that one. Shall we move on to Bulbul?
Yes.
I did not expect this movie to be this good. To be honest, I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. Beth, I've not seen this much excitement and like wanting to discuss content from you in a while. I thought this movie really kind of got your juices flowing. What did you think of Bulbul?
Yeah, so I'm trying to learn more about Indian horror films, and I also, as alluded to in the previous announcement, love Bengali movies, and this is more or less a Bengali movie in a lot of ways, which we can dig into. And I also love, attempts to have a feminist take on tropes or histories or things like that. So this was pretty squarely up my alley, and I responded very positively to it, except for I find the violence against women in this movie impactful in a way far beyond what I would have expected, and much more upsetting than, the endless sort of rape revenge films that we've seen out of more sort of potboilery Hindi films from the 80s and 90s, or whatever you think of as the peak of violence against women in cinema. This to me was much more upsetting. And it, of course, then just justifies some of, quote unquote, justifies some of what happens.
Yeah. Let's keep it spoiler free for a bit. We'll keep it, because I know it just came out last week. We're going to have the discussion and then we're going to get into spoilers a little bit. Sorry, Amrita, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were like, Beth was the first person to, I think, watch it out of us four. So she had you posted this tweet thread, or not a tweet thread, but you had this tweet that said, the gendered violence in this is really horrific, and like that's the real horror of this film. And it was sort of like a trigger warning to people who wanted to watch it. And I was going through the responses to that thread, and a lot of women were like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know." And then other people were like, I don't know if I want to watch it. Like that's a little too heavy at this period, and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to ask, like, not just you, but like the guys as well. Do you think the violence in this was gratuitous, or do you think it was narratively justified?
I would edge towards gratuitous. I think the moment that you meet Rahul Bose's characters, you know. And in fact, the friend I watched this with, who has watched many Indian films, but not as many as I have, said, "Oh, kill him right now!" And the moment that the very moment that the younger of the twins came on the screen, so he's coded very effectively as horrible, and so I didn't think they needed to show, especially both of the major scenes, to the extent that they did, or at all. I think they could have hinted at it plenty well without showing any of it. And nobody watching this movie is going to question whether or not this is narratively justified, right? Like, you know. There's so many ways to hint at these things. Also, we've all been alive and seen movies before. So it's powerfully presented. It's aesthetically striking, but I think I would call it gratuitous.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well. It crosses that line of being of presenting the horror, but also it crosses that line of being gratuitous and unnecessary in that context.
It's not happened for me in a long time, but I've watched this movie twice. Like within the week it came out, and that rarely happens. Wow. That I find the time and that I like a movie enough to revisit it. I watched it one day after the other, so that's how much I love this movie. And I think honestly, this would be one of the best movies of the year if we were having a normal year. Like even back when. And I've had this before and this is not just my Anushka Sharma love, but I've had this with Filori, I've had this with Pari, where at the end of the year when I make a list of movies that kind of left an impact on me, her movie is always one of them. And I think a lot of foreboding is in this movie. Like they plan the pieces that are kind of in play later on from the starts, from the first shots, like what you mentioned, Beth. But I think the violence, it reminded me basically of Patal Lok, where it's not shot in a scintillating way, but the impact of it is very, very strong, and it just kind of like singes in your brain. And I think this is more like, and I don't think it veers into that spit on my grave, rape revenge kind of drama, where it could have, if it was written by a male or it was, had a different kind of point of view. So I did watch it twice, and I'll be honest, I fast forwarded both violent scenes both times. I can't watch violence against women. It just, children and women, it just like I never feel it's necessary, and I don't need to watch it. But so both times I actually fast forwarded. I didn't want to watch it, but I knew what was happening on screen, but I just kind of like went through it really quickly. I understand why it's needed narratively. I think it's shot without it being scintillating, but I personally don't want to watch that shit, so I kind of fast forward it too. So
especially one of those scenes is shot in extra, like ultra slow motion with blood splattering, like
it almost felt like it reminded me of Sin City, because the colors are so that it almost becomes black and white with the high contrast. And it reminded me of Sin City, like almost like graphic novel kind of violence. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, I knew what was happening, but that's kind of the image that was in my mind. I mean, let's start with this question before we kind of get into the spoiler things, because we have a lot to talk about that too. Why is this a Bengali movie? Sujoy, maybe I can ask Sujoy first, and then we can go to Beth, because Beth, I know Sujoy also has a bit of context in that, no?
Do I?
No, I mean, you've watched this. You've watched a lot of Bengali cinema, right? So do you feel like Beth made that statement that in a way this is a very Bengali movie? Do you agree? Do you feel that?
Yes. I do believe that it shares that universe, and it's a nod to that genre, to that era of Bengali cinema with, big zamindar havelis, and it's a nod to Charulata, or like of the movies of Ray, and also sort of borrows from Bengali folklore of the Devi Ma possessing the troubled girl in the family, the culture of the Chotto Bahu, and all of that makes it a Bengali movie in that way, even though the language that they speak is Hindi. But it also sort of breaks that illusion by when the children are writing their story in Hindi scripture rather than Bengali. I think that takes it away for me. But otherwise, the universe, obviously, like the visuals, completely take me to a Bengali movie setting.
Yeah.
I think when you're making something about the patriarchy, or if you're discussing patriarchy in film, Bengal has an almost like perfect system of patriarchy to be explored cinematically. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so... Like, in other places, it can be a little bit more messy, or it can be a little bit more amorphous. But in Bengal, the way the patriarchy is portrayed, especially in its cinema, and I don't read a lot of Bengali literature. I've only read like a few books, but the movies that I've seen, especially the older ones that I've watched with Beth, I mean, the way that they portray the patriarchy encapsulated within this world of the zamindars, it's so perfectly adaptable to cinema that it makes a lot of sense for the story to be set within this context, I think.
We also have, as our friend Sal pointed out on Twitter, this borrows very heavily from the story of Tagore, and and the story of his whatever relationship with one of his brother's child brides. And then we have to talk about the child marriage, because that pops up in, I can't speak to the actual history of this, but it appears in movies often. And sometimes it's exploited to make a very grand romantic reveal, as in Agni Pariksha, which is remade in Hindi as Choti Si Baat, right? Mulakat. Sorry, Choti Si Mulakat, which is a whole other story. But so sometimes it's, they were married as children and then they separated and then they don't remember, and they're brought back together. But here, you see the real horror is also the pedophilic sort of child bride aspect of this family.
But I
think that's what... No, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because that part was like weird to me, because he... Like the Rahul Bose character, like the Indraneel character, for him it's it's more about possession than sexuality. So, I mean, obviously it's abhorrent that he's marrying such a young child, but he doesn't seem to be. He seems to be like waiting, like, because I don't think they're sleeping together. Like, even later on, he's still sleeping with.
Paoli Dam.
Paoli Dam's he's sleeping with her. He's not sleeping with Tripti's character, right? As far as I understood in the movie. Yeah. So there is an aspect to pedophilia, but it seems to me about more like owning. And the whole male idea seems to be about owning women more than having women, if that's making sense. Like,
welcome to the patriarchy.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
Yeah, but it's also like the way Satya is kind of like dealing with the whole thing. Like, he's not making any moves towards Bulbul's character, right? Like, he's like, I don't even know if he loves her in any way, shape, or form. He just wants to own her. And like, because I was reading a few reviews about this, and this is one of those movies where you want to read more about other people's thoughts and ideas about it. And I think it was Sucharita's review who said that Satya is kind of the idea of change. And he's kind of like a positive character. And I was like, Satya is like one of the worst characters.
Oh.
Like, I hated Satya.
Yeah.
He also sort of, towards the end, comes to the realization that he thought that he was foreign educated and all this change was coming in here and he had grown up. But the final realization is that he is also part of the patriarchy. He is the same as his brothers. That kind of makes him different in a way because the others don't realize that.
Yeah. But throughout most of the movie, I mean, I just wanted to slap him every time I saw his face.
Yes.
Yeah.
His inaction is condemned, I think, by the film, which I appreciate. And then his wrong, when he goes after the wrong people.
And I do also love that they cast, these two together, Tripti Damri and Avinash Tiwari, because they were, although not everybody, and I definitely didn't watch Laila Majnu, that, coming from Laila Majnu, these lovers that are supposed to be together. And I think Bulbul does use that kind of imagery to kind of get these two together, where you have this idea, they're supposed to be together. They're, there's this love, or, they're the appropriate age. And at the start, it does seem that something might blossom there. But Satya is just so set within his ways that he resorts back to, things like, I hope my brother still accepts you, that kind of thing. And it's like, dude, I want to slap you so bad at this moment. And I think it's amazing performances by everybody in this movie. Also, like, Rahul Bose, who's like one of the wokest actors in India, and he's like playing all of these horrible, horrible men in like Here and in Dil Dhadakne Do. It's just like weird how he's found this niche of being like horrible people, but he seems to be kind of like a very sensible kind of guy otherwise.
I mean, welcome to woke bros. They're just as bad, they're just as bad.
I do have to give Anushka Sharma a shout out for basically her work is like all her movies, like each of them. Just going back to our initial conversation about violence and whether it's gratuitous or not. I mean, her movies, all of them, they're so violent, but they show the violence from the female perspective, which, with each film, she's just showing the many ways, the many different violences that women undergo in India. And the sort of casual way that it is supported and perpetrated by society at many different levels and in the different forms that violence can take, just within Bulbul, they're we were talking about the gory stuff, the assault and the rape and all of that. But there's also the other things that happen to Bulbul, her marriage, the way Satya treats her, the way that she's the head of the household until Satya comes back, all those little things, and then the relationship between her and Paoli Dam and the things that Paoli Dam tells her after her assault, all those
that
things,
scene.
It's amazing.
I want that scene to win awards for writing and acting. That was just
right.
And I feel like you don't see, at least at that length, that kind of frankness between women, especially women who have been set up to sort of oppose each other and compete with each other. And then for that to drop and for them to be honest about this, about life-threatening situations in the home that they're forced to share is just gutting and important.
But the writing is so condensed. It's just amazing. It's like you know that these two women are pitted against each other. You see their courteousness, and then you see the patriarch address them, and Rahul Bose's Indranil character asking for Paoli Dam to address the younger Bulbul as Badi Bahu, as an elder to her, and then the dynamic just gets thrown at us in such a small piece of dialogue. It's just beautiful. And then we have the assault scene, post-assault, when Paoli Dam repeats what is expected of her, what her mom's, sort of lessoned her. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
sorry, Asim.
No, and also one and because I rewatched it, the other scene I also really liked her in is when she's come back home and she just has the pandan in her hand, and her joy of just having that, it was her thing, making pans for everybody, and it was clearly her pandan, and just holding it, and her joy of that one part, that all of the things she's lost by becoming a widow, which is also kind of like a very shocking, like just the physical transformation of it is just so shocking to see. Because she has such beautiful long hair, and then she's bald in the other scene, and this is kind of the only connection to her old glory is that the little pandan, and she's like just offering everybody, can I make pan for you, Satya? Can I make pan for you, Bulbul? And Bulbul, like, she's like in full Cersei mode, like Cersei in Game of Thrones. That's the vibe I got. Like, she is the queen now, and she just go like, lagao tum pan, make me a pan now. And then we switch back to the flashback, and it's like she's seeing that Indraneel is kind of getting now sexually attracted to Bulbul because she's come of age, which is disgusting. Like, when you think about it, not when you think about it, it's just like, it's disgusting the way he's like holding her hand and stuff like that. I just like I was getting physically sick, and she just kind of like wants to pull back his attention by first giving the pan. And it reminded me of Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, where Anjali's like, juice, Rahul, juice. It's like, pan. And then when that doesn't work, because he shares the pan with her also in a disgusting way, this whole thing was sickening. And then she just adds another layer to say, oh, Satya, when is Satya going to get married? That kind of thing. And she's just constantly just like hammering on poor Bulbul. And I don't know if her character got enough of a comeuppance, to be honest. Like, she was like terrible to Bulbul, like throughout like all of her life.
Oh, I think she did.
Sorry?
Oh, I think that she did.
You think,
she has, she has nothing, and she lashes out at the only person who's lower than her, who isn't actually low, so it's so gutting. What was it? My train just ran off the rails. I'll pop back in if I think of it. Yeah.
No, I agree with Beth, like, she's basically hitting out at Bulbul because Bulbul is small enough to not know how to fight back. And then that scene that they have between the two of them after the assault, that's the one moment where it's so complex, that scene, where, because you have this history between the two of them, the very complicated sexual and emotional history between the two of them and their places in the household. But it's also a moment of sisterhood, because now Bulbul knows the full horror of the life that the two of them are born into. And it kind of drives home the point that it doesn't matter how well born you are or how much money you have. In that system, women have no rights and they have nothing. Everything that they have is given to them and can be taken away from them at any moment. And the moment Mahendra dies, it is taken away from her. She literally becomes a walking ghost. And when she comes back to the house, and it's that scene on the stairs, and that scene also, it's every scene in this film, there's like so many layers to it. But that scene where, she's sort of lying back on the stairs and sort of taking in her kingdom and sunning herself. And then Satya comes in and just, without even thinking about it twice, and he doesn't even realize it, but he completely usurps her position as the head of the household. And then Paoli Dam comes in and she seats herself at Bulbul's feet, That's the way that it's centered. And then she's like talking to to Bulbul, and then she's trying. You can see that she's trying to like gain her footing again by reminding her that her authority comes from the Thakur. The Thakurain is nothing without the Thakur. But then she can't really make her point anymore because this is a completely different Bulbul, and she doesn't really understand that. Like she gets it, but she doesn't completely get it.
Because that was my thing, because like I never, like, I feel the moment she comes back, she becomes like she's spitting venom again against Bulbul, and now Bulbul is basically a superhero, so she can't be touched anymore. She's bulletproof, but every moment she has, she still tries to, put shit on Bulbul again. So that's why I was like, that's where my question was, where, okay, she has been humbled by society, but even when she has nothing to gain anymore, she still wants to dump on Bulbul. She at least tries every time, right? So that's where I was.
I mean, that's what she's been raised to do also, right? Like there's never encouragement for these two women to cooperate or anything. I remembered what I wanted to say, which was that her character, if I understood this correctly, other people also hold her responsible for Mahendra. And that's just revolting, right? She's supposed to control her husband.
Do you think she also had like a child marriage, or was she married later, or what do you guys like? I don't like that part. I was like unsure about. It seemed that they were not like child married as children, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think she was married into the family from a lower class of the society, but she was married into family because Mahendra is like a mentally disabled, or like a child, a man-child sort of, and she was married into the family to take care of him like a nanny. And then like her family sort of forced her into the marriage so that she would be a Thakurain, she would belong to that family, and that's what she says, all the expectations of the family of what she was taught to, and then to realize that badi haveliyon mein bade raaz hote hain and all of that.
I mean, holding women responsible for men as rapists is classic, right? And it was interesting to me that they found a way to throw, to make some commentary on that.
But it's like, it was also just rewatching it. The one thing that also jumped out at me was kind of how the movie plays with power dynamics within gender, but also within class. And like, I love that cigar and beedi scene, where she's having a beedi or a joint, I don't know what it was that she was actually smoking, with the Parambrata, the Dr. Sudeep character, and Satya sees that. So then what does he do? He offers her a cigar instead of a beedi, like, because this is like a proper smoke to have,
Bigger.
So that I kind of loved that too. And the other thing that also stood out to me is that Bulbul doesn't have a mom, right? She only has an auntie. And just this idea that, this little girl has no mom and she's just being, shuffled away at a young age as a burden, because also there's no dad. They do talk about, do you miss your Mecca? But it seems that Bulbul had nobody, she was just like loaded off to this family somewhere in the jungle, and she just like, fending for herself. And it just kind of made me sad, I mean, I have a daughter, and I cannot separate those two things, from each other. And I know this is a criticism that men get, that, you can only see feminist struggle if you have a sister or you have a daughter. But just that thought, like such a little girl getting, thrown in front of the wolves is just, it's just terrible, it's horrible. And the poor girl, she just wants to climb trees, man. That's all she wants to do. She wants to fly.
No, I just wanted to like sort of plot the graph of the Bulbul character itself. And the way it's been depicted in the series, it's like it jumps back and forth in the timeline, right? It's not really linear in the way we see, and that keeps us invested on how Bulbul transforms into this, like as Asim said, the Cersei-like superpowered girl who is so sure in her, composure and how she knows what she is in this world. You can see the confidence in her face, but how she transforms from the timid girl that she was. And they do an excellent job of kudos to the actress Tripti Damri who plays Bulbul, but also the hair and makeup. Like, it just transforms her from the more muted colors to wearing really bright red, and it just brings everything together to depict Bulbul has come from where she was to the final avatar in that sense.
Shall we get into spoilers? Shall we get into spoilers?
Yeah.
Because I think we've spoken about it. But yeah, so what did you guys think of the reveal of, Bulbul is the churel? I mean, Amrita, did it surprise you at all?
It wasn't a reveal. It was totally obvious the whole time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of the
That's what
because
we
the first, no, but because the first shot is literally Bulbul climbing a tree, right? So there was no it was clearly you see her feet is the first thing, and I loved that thing reveal. I loved though, the twisted feet thing, because that is a ghost story that I used to hear back in Karachi. Like my aunts and my older cousins used to tell me stories of churels with feet backwards. So playing around with that mythology, and obviously it doesn't make sense, and I think you need to have just kind of it doesn't make any physical sense, but I loved how they played with that mythology and the reveal of the twisted feet. I thought that was really, really well done.
That was also horrifying though.
Yeah.
And it makes you go back through the scenes where, if I remember right, the scene on the steps, we don't know about her feet yet.
Yeah.
Right? And so when people are at her feet, that means actually something different or extra than it does just the idea.
But it does feel odd, like the way the camera just the focus is on those boots she's wearing, and they're bound so tightly, and like Parambrata is like touching her or massaging the feet slightly. Something is wrong, and it reminds me of those. Is it Chinese Chinese dynasty where they bind women's feet? Those shoes are kind of very similar, but you don't put two and two together, right? Because at the start you see one of the doctor, I think Dr. whatever his name is, and you see him get dragged away, and you see feet dragging, but you don't know which, how they would be pulling the corpse, right? But then you see it the other way, that it is actually twisted feet, and it's like, wow, it's a really cool play on that.
I think the bigger reveal for me was the reason why the people were dying in the village. As in, why were these victims, or why were these people getting killed? The reason behind these.
Oh, see, I maybe this is where my being a woman comes in, because I 100% thought every single one of them deserved it. I didn't even know what was going on. I was like, oh, they're dying. Oh, they must have done something.
Because when it really stood out to me, I mean, you said the movie does not hold surprises. When the first victim dies, and you see the shot of his funeral, and you see his wife with broken arms, a bloody lip, and she has a silent smile on her face, like this is at least over. And then the second killing happens, I think second or the third killing, and there's this floating mention of, we found this little girl who's traumatized that can't talk. And I think was, wait. Satya, stop playing Sherlock Holmes and for a moment ask yourself, why was there a little girl present there? And the movie just, it puts it in that male perspective that, oh, I am here to solve these murders. I don't even have time to ask the question, what was a little girl doing with this man while he was having a bath, And I also knew that all of these guys deserve it, and I think the movie makes it clear. But just that, I mean, it was so sad, man. Just when she's holding the little girl, after she's killed the doctor, and the music, the background score is so good. Like, we've not even talked about the cinematography and the background score and the set design and the clothes, like everything. Like, that's where production value comes in, right? It's not just about the director and its vision, but like pulling all of those elements together. That is just such amazing work. And the contrast between red and blue, it's a beautifully shot movie, and that haunting score.
What did we think of the doctor character? I saw someone on Twitter say that he was sort of the not all men hashtag insertion. And I don't, he is not the person who made the least impact for me. But maybe that was how he was supposed to be.
I mean, he's playing the same guy as in Kahani, pretty much, right? Like, it's kind of the same
Similar,
kind of vibe he is. Like,
poor Parambrata. He tries, and then everybody reduces him to just, he's the same guy from Kahani.
But is this his entire career? I've not watched any of his movies, just these two. So is this all he does? Is he always just the nice Indian boy?
No. In Bengali films, he does quite a few other kinds of things. But I mean, I have to say, of all the films I've seen him in, Kahani is still my favorite. For him, not just as a film overall. I think that's his best performance that I've seen.
He just has like a very decent, caring kind of face, right? Like, also in Pari, he was pretty much the same guy, right? Now, when I think of it, like, always just caring and helping women out. Yeah. I mean, I did like that he stood up to Satya, and he was never cowered by him, and he just thought that he was a ridiculous little boy. I don't know. I felt like him and Bulbul should have been banging, though. Like, I don't know, like, just like,
when he has the line about,
I don't know.
He has a line where he says something to her like, "Tell me what happened. You can trust me. I'm your doctor." I was like, oh no, this is about to go even worse, but it didn't. So.
Oh, where did you think it was going? Sorry?
Yeah.
I thought after he was going to try to get her to open up to him about what happened, and then he was going to use it against her somehow or other.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
The women are like, yeah, we've seen this.
Yeah. What did you guys think of Parambrata's character? Amrita?
I mean, he's just there, right?
He exists.
Yes, pretty much.
I mean, it's kind of cool that the heroine, so to speak, has a best friend who's actually helpful and significant in a quiet way, rather than like, he's not comic relief. He's not. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't. Obviously, a comic relief would have been out of place in this film, but like, there's something I feel like a little bit different about this kind of role, because he is an authority figure in that he's a doctor and he's obviously a guest in the home, but that he does not have a problem standing up to I don't know, is that he calls out the man of the house in the end, and you don't see that very often, I don't think.
Yeah, but like, what do you guys think he knew? Like, because suddenly he does become kind of the audience surrogate with the reveal when she like kind of appears in her full form, in her final form as like, the goddess, which was amazing. Like, it was such like a striking visual with the feet turned around and what she's wearing and the blood and the hair like full, open. It looked beautiful. Like, it was amazing.
You know what that reminded me of? In that imagery, when she has those kajal eyes and like open hair, red and everything, she kind of reminded me of. Do you remember watching the first Raz movie with not Bipasha but the other girl, Malini Sharma? She kind of reminded me of that.
But I think it's kind of like iconographic imagery, right? Like of Hindu deities. I've seen like paintings and things like that, like how it kind of I mean, I don't have context, but I've heard of it, and it's just like very striking. And also just the actress, like she has to play like, you know, 3 different shades of a character, and it almost feels like even for her, like and like in a way this movie is like the perfect movie to kind of release now, because it's within the nepotism debate. These guys have been working for such a long time. Like Avinash Tiwari, I think, you know, Amrita, you told me about Good Sunday. Was it Good Tu Mera Sunday? Ages ago, right? Tu Hai Mera Sunday, yeah. And I remember you talking about how good this actor was. We spoke about it, both of them, in when we were talking about the music of Laila Majnu. So they've been working, and like in the interviews, you see that how much they've been struggling, and they've, you know, this is their moment in the spotlight. And that final reveal also is just like this actress kind of coming in full glory on screen, like, you know, it like all of that kind of came together. And I was just thinking about how this is kind of perfect when people are, you know, everybody's cancelling Karan Johar and Sonam Kapoor and Salman Khan and everybody online. You cannot cancel these guys because they've been grafting, they've been doing amazing work, they've done amazing work here, and now, you know, this movie is also really hit kind of like a critical nerve. And I just thought that was kind of great that all of that was coming together. And I hope, you know, these actors can kind of leverage that into something else later on, you know. Because my other fear is that, you know, this actress becomes kind of like Sovita Dulipali, who had a moment with Made in Heaven. And now it seems she couldn't really bank on that success. Like, I don't feel she's been able to follow up with that. Also, I mean, there's less projects and stuff like that, and I don't know what these actresses are necessarily interested in, but I hope that you know, Tripti can do that.
Somebody said on Twitter, I think, both of them worked, Avinash and Tripti worked in Laila Majnu, and Laila Majnu was more of a showcase of Avinash's, you know, acting prowess, and it's good to see that Tripti gets the fronting here. Like, she gets full centerfold attention in Bulbul, and she really explores, and, you know, everything thrown at her, she excels in it, which is great to watch for us as audiences.
Yeah. Anything else we missed out, Beth, Amrita, about Bulbul that you guys want to talk about? No?
I have something here.
Yeah.
I have something here. I am very thankful for the filmmakers or the makers of Bulbul to have not gone with any sort of Bengali accents thrown here and there, like Devdas did. I am also very, very thankful for the color grading here, to have explored with other shades of red, blue, and yellow, and all in between, rather than sticking with the stock templates of other Netflix and Amazon Prime shows. It's such a greater color palette that they've explored here, and it really works. And yeah,
it's quite like shocking, shocking changes in the color palette, and it just seems seamless. You know, it never really is jarring that they go from bright red to deep blue. You know, and I don't know which movie we were talking about last time where we felt like all of it looks blue. You know, we were joking about it that the filter looks really bad. And I think also with that Chris Hemsworth movie, a lot of people were kind of bringing it up that, you know, everything looks yellow. So, yeah. And one shot that I really, really loved is on rewatching it kind of stood out. And this movie has so much. I actually would recommend people rewatch it because you miss out on little things. It's that scene where she's waiting for Satya. Satya goes with Indranil to go get papers from, I think, Calcutta or something like that. And there's this shot where she's just waiting, and you see her waiting at the window, but then you see all different days that she runs to the window, you know, in different clothes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like...
And all the Bulbuls merged together into one.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I love that one.
And that is a direct reference to Charulata, which is pretty important in this film too, I think.
Beth, you also said something about Bengali movies and picnics.
Bengali movies, and Ray is included in this, like, they love a socially awkward picnic. It happens all the time where people are like, you're like, it's in the woods and it's so, everyone's here, it's so nice. There's this lovely, like, did you notice their picnic basket? It was very chic. And then it's just an excuse for people to jibe at each other. And I was like, I haven't seen a socially awkward Bengali film picnic for a while, and I love them. It's always a picnic. It's never a dinner party. It's a picnic.
I also love the thread that Anurag Kashyap did about Bulbul, how he got the script and he just didn't see it, and seeing the final product of it, how much they worked on it and how different it is. Obviously he emailed it to me directly too, but
you and Anurag are like best buds.
He also emailed it. He tweeted about it. That was cool. By the way, Tripti Damri, the actress, only has 4,000 followers on Twitter. Can you imagine? Isn't that insane?
Wow.
Yeah, I think she should have 4,000 followers daily.
Yeah.
What was funny though with Anupama Chopra's review, she had a major issue with the churel getting shot with a bullet, and she was like, "Do churels get bullets?"
Yeah.
That was a really weird review though. Like, she was like talking about like how she's sick and tired of watching like strong female characters smoke and drink, and I'm just like, did you watch that movie and like get the context within which she was doing that?
Is that what you take from Bulbul?
And also because the smoke, I don't think we see her drinking actually. I don't remember that. But the smoking is again about like the power dynamics that Satya is imposing her. So I thought it made total sense.
Yeah.
And there was also, I think, a review I read about the criticism was about Mahindra's character.
Being mentally disabled.
Yeah, exactly. And that being kind of an evil, something like being disabled is the same as being evil. Which, again, I felt he was always fascinated with Bulbul from he's the first one that comes into a room, so that the creep level is there. And I think Beth, you also mentioned it. Also when she's swinging again at that picnic and he's pulling her hair, he's just like, he's like a very, very creepy guy from the start. So again, I think it was kind of built in, and I think,
I mean, Indranil is the sound guy here and he's still a creep, all men are bastards in this universe.
Yeah.
I do think that bears scrutiny though, because you have so few films that do depict anyone with a mental disability in any kind of depth whatsoever, and then here is one sort of, and he's vile, so it's not that I don't think maybe cinema's quite at the place where that has enough context in other cinematic depictions to stand very well. I didn't think that was again, that doesn't seem necessary. That may also have been a bit exploitative or gratuitous, right? He could have just been a creep easily.
Yeah, but I think
I would be very interested in critiques of that. I think it's fair.
I think it's also just that it's all three of these men are despicable. And it's more about their privilege and their place in society than necessarily his disability. Like, I think he was gonna get away with it anyway, right? Like his wife is gonna protect him, his brother is gonna protect him, and it's I don't know. It was just interesting to read that comment because it was not something that kind of jumped out to me. Amrita, any final thoughts on Bulbul?
I just think it's interesting that her name is Bulbul and the movie is sort of like her journey to finding her voice, and then when she does, it is terrifying. And I think that's wonderful.
It's a good movie. I think we all kind of Loved it, and I think it's cool that Netflix has something that we can get fully on board, because a lot of times these Netflix movies and content, we've been shitting on it quite a bit. So it's kind of cool to, and not pleasant
a
to
cool
rewatch.
project for Red Chilies to be associated with as well.
Oh yeah. And great job also. Like I think all of the special effects and the animation looks really good, because it is hard to like that. Again, I'm coming back to those twisted feet, but making her still climb trees and walk. It's just like it's a tough thing to do, like from a effects point of view, right? But I don't think there's some certain elements where when she's really jumping off trees one to the other, that it becomes like, a bit fantasy. But I think at that moment we get it. She's a superhero at that moment, right? So I totally, I'm on board. I don't mind it then.
I think the jungle fire wasn't as convincing for me. It did remind me of Jungle Book in a way, but the fire is very hard to animate, and that could have been done better with more budget, I guess. But my favorite VFX moment was when she materializes back in the end. It's really, really well done. Yeah. Although the Haveli, when Rahul Bose comes back, there's a drone shot of the Haveli, and that looks really bad too. The VFX, like they rendered it in 3D, and that didn't look good at all. A lot of Haveli movies lately, like Gulabo Sitabo and now Bulbul and things like that. Beth, did you watch Gulabo Sitabo, by the way?
No, I was almost convinced by some of the discussion on your podcast, and then I thought, I don't think this movie is for me. So,
it probably isn't. it's quite bad. Cool. Shall we wrap things up? Beth, where can people find you online?
So I'm at BethLovesBolly on Twitter, and if I can take this opportunity to promote two online events that I have coming for my job. I'm hosting Netflix party watch-alongs of Stree and Haider coming up in the next couple of months, and I will be sure to put those on my Twitter so that if anyone, probably in North America based on the timing, wants to do a watch-along on Netflix with me, please do.
That's really cool. And that's part of what project for work? Is there like a grander theme?
This is just for work, since museums are, we are still closed, although in Illinois museums could open as of Friday. We're trying to do some online programming. So I hosted with a friend who works in the library and is the South Asian librarian for campus. We did a watch-along of Ek Ladki for Pride Month, and now we're doing Stree and Haider as a sort of trilogy of slightly unusual but still mainstream Hindi films.
Yeah, I think Bulbul and Stree are kind of a good double feature too. I think there's a lot of
totally
thematic connections between these two. Amrita, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at AmritaIQ, and as usual, I have my my YouTube channel, Amrita by the Book. I was talking earlier on about David Copperfield, and I also did a video about it where I talk about Charles Dickens and his problematic history. So if you like that kind of content, then check it out.
Great. Sujoy?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram at 9e3k.
And still not on TikTok.
No, I'm not. I've been thinking though. I've been thinking some more. Yeah.
I know, that's a joke. He's been thinking about it. We're on YouTube, so subscribe and then you'll get a shout out on the next episode, which will be still cool. You can drop us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. Subscribe to You Podcast Bollywood Edition for the new podcast that will be coming out with Amrita, Sujoy and Beth. And leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We love always hearing back, and we haven't had a review in a while, and we've still not had any feedback from our Indian listeners. What are you guys doing? Let me know what you think of the show, and why have you been leaving such bad reviews for us, for the ones that have. And thanks for listening. We'll be back very soon again with another episode before we go on break on the 9th. Thanks for listening. क्या बोलती